My life in San Francisco had always felt like a perfectly balanced scales, a comfortable rhythm of work, friends, and the occasional scenic hike along the Marin headlands. At 28, I, Leela Thompson, had carved out a nice existence for myself in a cozy apartment in the Richmond district, just a few blocks from Golden Gate Park. I worked in digital marketing, a field that demanded a certain level of creativity and quick thinking, but also offered the stability I appreciated. My days were a mix of brainstorming sessions, client meetings, and the satisfying hum of city life outside my window. I had a small, close-knit group of friends, a collection of quirky, intelligent women I'd known since college, and evenings were often spent exploring new restaurants, catching indie films, or simply sharing a bottle of wine and endless laughter. Life, I thought, was good. It was full, it was mine, and it felt secure. Then he walked into it, and for a long time, everything I knew about balance and security crumbled into dust. I met him at a professional networking event downtown, one of those obligatory mixers that usually ended with me making polite small talk and escaping as soon as socially acceptable. But he was different. He had this easy charm, a quick wit that made me laugh genuinely, and eyes that seemed to hold a fascinating story. He was intelligent, articulate, and seemed to understand me in a way no one else ever had. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, from our shared love for obscure jazz to our surprisingly similar views on existential philosophy. We talked for hours that first night, completely oblivious to the thinning crowd around us. When he asked for my number, my heart did a little flutter I hadn't felt in years. It was exciting, intoxicating, and felt like the beginning of something truly special. That feeling only intensified over the next few months. Our dates were magical. We explored hidden staircases in the city, spent an entire rainy Saturday in a bookshop, and had long, late-night dinners where we'd talk until the restaurant staff started subtly nudging us toward the door. He was attentive, thoughtful, and made me feel like I was the most important person in his world. He remembered small details I'd mentioned in passing, showed up with my favorite coffee order when I was having a stressful day, and always seemed to know exactly what to say to make me smile. I was falling deeply, irrevocably in love. I started to picture a future with him, a life where our paths intertwined, where we built something lasting together. It was a beautiful, comforting dream, then came the cold, hard slap of reality. It wasn't a dramatic confrontation, no scene ripped from a movie script. It was a quiet, insidious truth that surfaced in a casual comment from a mutual acquaintance at a charity gala. We were talking about a recent outdoor festival, and this person, completely innocently, mentioned seeing him and his girlfriend there. My blood ran cold. Girlfriend? I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, a sickening lurch in my stomach that stole my breath. I feigned ignorance, managing a tight-lipped smile and a vague, "Oh, really?" The acquaintance, oblivious to the seismic shift they'd just caused in my universe, went on to describe her. Her name, her two kids, their life together. It was like a meticulously constructed glass house shattering around me, piece by painful piece. I made my excuses and left the gala, the vibrant chatter and music fading into a dull roar in my ears. The drive home was a blur of tears and choked sobs. How could he? How could he have created such a convincing, beautiful lie? My mind replayed every date, every tender moment, every shared laugh, now tainted by the knowledge of his deceit. I felt foolish, betrayed, and utterly heartbroken. The next morning, fueled by a mixture of anger and self-preservation, I confronted him. His voice, usually so warm and reassuring, sounded distant, filled with practiced apologies and hollow justifications. "It's complicated, Leela," he'd said, the oldest line in the book. "She's just a roommate, a long-term commitment I fell into, but it's not real, not like us." He swore they weren't married, just living together, a situation he claimed was a relic of his past, something he was desperate to escape. I immediately cut him off, blocked his number, unfollowed him on social media, tried to erase him from every digital corner of my life. For a week, I felt a fragile sense of reclaiming myself, a desperate attempt to put the pieces back together. My apartment, once filled with the warmth of our shared moments, now felt sterile, a stark reminder of his absence. I tried to focus on work, but my mind was a constant whirl of betrayal and confusion. I'd replay his words, his promises, trying to find the cracks, the signs I'd missed. But then the gifts started arriving at my office. First, a simple bouquet of my favorite lilies with a note that read, "Please just talk to me." Then a small, intricate piece of jewelry, a silver hummingbird charm delivered by a messenger. My colleagues would glance at me, some with knowing smiles, others with concerned frowns, but I tried to act like it was just a misunderstanding, a distant admirer. Each delivery was a fresh assault on my resolve, chipping away at the walls I was trying to build. He wasn't just sending objects, he was sending reminders of the man I thought I knew, the man who had effortlessly charmed his way into my heart. The temptation was a constant ache. I'd pick up my phone, type out a message, delete it, then do it again. He'd leave voicemails, long, rambling messages filled with remorse and promises. He swore he'd end things with her, that he was just waiting for the right moment, for the kids to be settled, for the financial situation to untangle. He painted a picture of a difficult, unavoidable separation, making himself seem like the victim of circumstances, not the architect of deceit. He'd say things like, "You're the one, Leela. You're the future I truly want. This other situation, it's just an obligation, a comfort zone I need to break free from." My friends, bless them, warned me. "Leela, he's manipulating you," they'd say, their voices laced with concern. "He's telling you what you want to hear. Actions, not words, Leela. Actions." But the part of me that still loved him, the part that longed for the dream we'd built, was louder. It was a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong, that he truly loved me and just needed time to sort out his messy life. Eventually, after weeks of this relentless siege, I caved. I told myself it was for a final conversation, just to get closure. But one conversation turned into another, and then a meeting, and then a tearful reunion in a quiet corner of Golden Gate Park, where he held my face in his hands, looked into my eyes, and promised, "This time, it's different. I'm leaving her, for good, for us." And like an idiot, I believed him. This cycle, this excruciating dance of hope and despair, went on for over 3 years. 3 years of his endless promises, his elaborate excuses, his repeated failures to ever actually leave her. He'd promised to tell her by the end of the month, then claim an emergency came up, a sick child, a family crisis that made it impossible. He'd say he'd found a new place, that the papers were being drawn up, that he just needed a little more time to make it smooth for everyone involved. Each lie was carefully crafted, designed to string me along, to keep me just within his orbit. My life became a constant state of waiting, of checking my phone, of dissecting every word he said, searching for the elusive truth that never came. My friends grew frustrated, their patience wearing thin as I repeatedly returned to the man who was systematically draining the joy from my life. They'd stopped trying to give advice, their expressions a mixture of pity and exasperation. I grew isolated, ashamed of my own inability to break free, embarrassed to admit I was still holding onto a ghost of a relationship. My self-esteem plummeted. I started questioning everything about myself. Was I not good enough? Was there something inherently unlovable about me that kept him from choosing me? I became a shadow of my former self, constantly anxious, perpetually on edge, my once vibrant spirit dimmed by the constant emotional turmoil. Work became a chore, my creativity stifled by the oppressive weight of his deceit. I'd stare blankly at my computer screen, the words refusing to form, my mind consumed by the latest lie, the most recent broken promise. There were days I could barely get out of bed, overwhelmed by the sheer exhaustion of living a half-life, of being someone's secret, of waiting for a future that would never arrive. My lowest point came one rainy afternoon, sitting alone in my apartment, staring at the phone, knowing he was with her, living a life he pretended was just a temporary arrangement. A profound sense of despair settled over me, heavy and suffocating. I realized then that I wasn't just waiting for him to leave her, I was waiting for him to save me, to validate my worth. And that was a burden no one could carry, especially not a pathological liar. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I had to save myself. I had to choose myself. I couldn't endure another lie, another promise, another year of this emotional purgatory. It was over, for real this time. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but also the most liberating. I sent him a final text, brief and to the point, stating that I was done, that I deserved more, and that I would not be responding to him ever again. Then I blocked him, deleted his number, and this time I meant it. The first few months after I finally, truly left him were a strange mix of profound grief and a tentative, fragile sense of freedom. It was like emerging from a long, dark tunnel into blinding sunlight. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it was no longer a fresh wound bleeding out. It was a scar, slowly healing. I threw myself into work, started rekindling old friendships, and rediscovered hobbies I'd long abandoned. I joined a book club, took up pottery, and started running again, feeling the wind in my hair as I pushed my body, cleansing myself of the lingering toxicity. San Francisco, once a backdrop to my misery, began to feel vibrant again, full of possibility. One evening, my friend Sarah convinced me to attend a club meeting with her. It was a local community organization focused on urban gardening and sustainability, something I'd always been interested in but never had the time or energy for. The meeting was held in a renovated community center in the Mission District, a lively space filled with enthusiastic people discussing compost and native plants. I was chatting with Sarah, genuinely enjoying myself when a man approached us. He was tall, with kind eyes and a warm, easy smile, and he introduced himself as Daniel. As he spoke, something clicked in my mind. His name, the way he carried himself, a fleeting resemblance to the man who'd caused me so much pain. It was her ex-husband. The man who shared 2 children with the woman my ex had been living with for years. My heart gave a little jolt, but I kept my expression neutral, feigning ignorance with a practiced ease I didn't know I possessed. I had never met him before, but I knew of him, knew his story through the bits and pieces my ex had occasionally let slip, usually when trying to paint his live-in girlfriend as a complex, difficult individual. Daniel was nothing like what I'd imagined based on those snippets. He was engaging, intelligent, and genuinely curious about my interest in gardening. We talked about different soil types and the challenges of growing vegetables in urban environments. It was surprisingly easy to chat with him, and I found myself laughing, a real, unforced laugh that felt foreign yet welcome. He asked for my number at the end of the meeting, ostensibly to share some resources on composting, and after a moment of internal debate, a mischievous glint in my eye, I gave it to him. Our initial conversations were casual, about gardening tips and local events, but slowly, organically, they deepened. We discovered a shared love for classic rock, a mutual appreciation for quirky independent films, and a surprisingly similar sense of humor. He was patient, a good listener, and incredibly straightforward. There were no games, no evasions, just genuine interest and honesty. After a couple of months of talking, he asked me out on a proper date. I hesitated for a moment, the ghost of my past relationship whispering doubts in my ear. But something about Daniel felt different, solid. I said yes. Our first date was simple: dinner at a small Italian place in North Beach, followed by a walk along the Embarcadero. It was easy, comfortable, and profoundly enjoyable. He was incredibly sweet and considerate, making me feel valued and seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. There was a refreshing lack of drama, a quiet confidence about him that put me at ease. He was a devoted father, spoke openly and kindly about his children, and never once badmouthed his ex-wife. It was a stark contrast to the shadowy world of lies and secrets I had inhabited with my ex. As we continued to date, my initial, subtle hint of spite, a quiet satisfaction at the sheer cosmic irony of dating the ex-husband of my ex-situationship's partner, began to fade. It was replaced by something far more profound: genuine affection, respect, and a burgeoning love. Daniel was truly an absolutely fantastic human being. He was everything my ex wasn't: honest, reliable, emotionally mature. It's been a year now since Daniel and I started dating, and we are truly incredibly happy. Our relationship is built on trust, open communication, and mutual respect. There's a lightness to my life now, a joyful anticipation for the future that I hadn't felt in what felt like forever. His kids are wonderful, and I've enjoyed getting to know them, seeing the world through their curious eyes. We spend weekends exploring new parts of the city, taking his children to museums, or just enjoying quiet evenings at home. It's a real, fulfilling relationship, full of laughter and warmth. The most satisfying part: the complete inability of my ex to do anything about it. We all move in similar social circles, small enough that news eventually travels. He must have heard. Perhaps he saw us together at a public event, or maybe a mutual acquaintance, finally putting the pieces together, mentioned it in passing. I can only imagine the look on his face, the internal fury he must have felt. But he can't say a word. He has to take it in silence, stew in his own hypocrisy, because to acknowledge our past would be to admit to everyone that he had been leading a double life. Nobody knew we were a thing. I was his carefully guarded secret, a convenient side piece he could always return to. Now, his carefully constructed facade of a stable, committed relationship is subtly challenged by my very visible happiness with her ex-husband. It's a delicious irony, a silent, public triumph. At first, I'll admit, a small part of me did it out of spite. It was a flicker of rebellious satisfaction, a way to reclaim some of the power he'd stolen from me. But that feeling quickly morphed into something else entirely. It became clear, very quickly, that Daniel was far more than just a tool for my revenge. He was kind, thoughtful, genuinely good. He made me feel cherished, safe, and truly loved. What started as a calculated move, a defiant gesture against the man who had ruined years of my life, transformed into a beautiful, unexpected love story. So yes, a win is a win. Not just because of the exquisite irony for him, but because for me, it's a win that led to true happiness, a happiness I truly deserve. My scales are balanced again, perhaps even tipping towards something even better than before.